The Birds is an Alfred Hitchcock film adapted from a Daphne du Maurier novel, and it's the film he made after Psycho in 1960. We're going to get into it this week on the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of this month of the We Are Under Attack arc this month on the podcast. Obviously we're well into this episode 70 something now at this stage of the podcast. And he's back with a bang, ladies and gentlemen. Alfred Hitchcock. We can't keep him away. He can't stay away. He's back on the podcast with The Birds, and like I said, the second Daphne du Maurier adaptation that he made. We have covered Rebecca on the podcast, actually episode 1 of the podcast, but here we are now, nearly 18 months later with the second one here. And when I say we're going to be covering it, of course, talking about myself and my co-host, not guest host, Harry Bailey. How are you, Harry?
Very good, thanks. Great to be covering the legendary Alfred Hitchcock once again. He is, as you said, we just can't keep him away from the podcast. It's gas because it feels like we haven't covered Hitchcock in a while, but the last time we covered him was 3 arcs ago.
Yeah, exactly. What was it? July, I want to say, for Rear Window.
It was Rear Window anyway. It was the last time we covered Hitchcock. And funnily enough, we actually have no concrete plans yet to cover another Hitchcock film. So, for the Hitchcock fans in the audience, let us know in the comments below what Hitchcock film you would want to see us cover next, because as I said, we have no plans in our near future to cover another Hitchcock film. For those who don't know, we've covered all of his 1940s films. We've covered Psycho, we've covered Rear Window, and now we're covering The Birds. So any other Hitchcock films you want to see on the podcast, let us know in the comments below on YouTube, or send us a message on Instagram, whatever. Let us know, because it is kind of funny. Initially, we thought it was a terrible idea. In hindsight, at the time, which is a funny thing to say, in hindsight, at the time, we thought only covering Hitchcock films at the beginning of the podcast was a terrible idea, because we realized we are isolating so many people, because not everyone is a Hitchcock fan. But it does seem that whenever we go back to Hitchcock, the episodes do well. So I do think there are some Hitchcock fans still hanging about, maybe even from the origins of the podcast.
Yeah, I think between the two of us, we've seen certainly the vast majority, outside of maybe one or two films from Hitchcock from, like, say, the mid-30s onwards.
Yeah.
So, like, there's definitely some, like, from the late 20s and early 30s that we still haven't seen. But, like, from 1934, 35-ish, I think we've pretty much seen every film. But between us, we might not necessarily have seen them all, both, but there's quite a lot in there that we have both seen. We'd definitely be like another rewatch kind of situation. But yeah, like, speaking of, obviously I mentioned that this is the film that Hitchcock made after Psycho, but it was 3 years. Like, the 1940s and 50s, he's churning out pretty much a film a year on average.
30s as well. 30s
as well, yeah.
I think he had 13 films in the 1930s, if I'm not mistaken.
He's a workaholic. He's very, very busy, and like pretty much like there is the odd year where nothing came out, but like he never really went more than 2 years between releases. Whereas this is 1960. Sorry, Psycho, I should say, is 1960, and this is 1963. Now, of course, he did do episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which I actually have watched a few episodes of recently on Sky Arts. It's fun stuff, but obviously considering they're like bite-sized Hitchcock. I think he's better over a longer format for sure. But he obviously did that. He did Alfred Hitchcock Presents. The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, I should say, in between. So it's not like he wasn't doing anything, but it's pretty interesting that this is like probably the longest gap he had since probably the start of his career, in all honesty, between actual cinematic releases.
Which is hilarious considering, like, these days directors,
exactly,
who makes a film every 3 years these days. There's not many big name directors who make a film every 3 years. It's normally longer. Whereas for Hitchcock to take a 3-year break, being insane, it just shows that the man had some output.
And obviously, like, that's where talking about the studio system that he was working in, whereas
Yeah.
obviously now the cinema landscape is very, very different, and it's even getting funding for a film is much harder. But yeah, like I said, we might as well kind of get into it. Harry, what's your sorry, I didn't realize we were chugging a drink there.
No, no, no.
What's your spoiler-free review or early thoughts? I know we've both seen it before, and so yeah,
Yeah.
this is a rewatch for both of us. But on a
Yeah,
second
this is
view,
real interesting. This is a real interesting rewatch for me because I always contested that The Birds was Hitchcock's most overrated film, and on this watch, which might be my like fourth time seeing The Birds, I want to say like the fourth. Finally, it clicked for me. It took 4 goes, but it finally clicked for me. I am accepting The Birds for what it is. It is a genuinely entertaining thriller for me, where I initially maybe thought that it was slow or there was pacing problems, but on this watch I've kind of come to terms with the fact that it actually is more so Hitchcock really leaning into foreshadowing and foreboding
yeah,
and setting suspense. If that is something that sounds boring to you, I cannot imagine The Birds will click first time, because
no,
even for me it didn't click
yeah,
third
it didn't.
time. But if this rewatch is anything for me, it is the rewatch of all rewatches as far as Hitchcock goes. Most Hitchcock films, it's funny that we said, you've quoted before, am I right in saying Spielberg said most Stanley Kubrick films require at least multiple viewings.
Correct.
For me, a lot of Hitchcock films like work first try, and you're kind of like, oh,
I agree.
is it going to be better on a rewatch? Some of them are better on a rewatch. I think you could watch Psycho as many times as you want, and it'll always be amazing. But for me, eventually The Birds clicked for me. I genuinely enjoyed The Birds more than I've ever enjoyed The Birds, and I've come to terms with the fact that Tippi Hedren actually does put in a good performance. I actually think she is good in this film, and that is not something I would have said when I was 17 or 18 all those years ago when I first watched it. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, no, I actually remember appreciating Tippi Hedren's performance even first time around. I didn't think she was like a weak link or anything, but obviously she didn't have much acting experience, so maybe it's you can tell that she's maybe not as refined as someone like a Rod Taylor, who Quentin Tarantino has dubbed the great Rod Taylor. So he obviously has he's quite a big fan of his. But yeah, no, I remember enjoying it first time around. Like I think you've pretty much nailed it there. It's basically 2 hours of Hitchcock just using the knowledge that basically all of his fans are so they have so much knowledge about his work, his prior work, that he's using that against them. So he's
Yeah.
basically using it to like, for example, if I've said it, obviously I've got to mention again, Psycho was his previous film, and obviously that's about like an overbearing mother, etc., a guy with mommy issues, etc.
Yes.
He uses that to great effect in this film.
So great.
Yeah, like because you think the film's gonna go one way, and you think that it's basically Hitchcock gonna be. He's using your expectations against you, same way as he did with like I lost my train of thought there for a second, but like the fact that he is known as the master of suspense, he's just, there's one scene of birds looking very ominous in the sky, and then he'll have another one and another one and another one, and it's like, okay, when is something actually going to happen? But then when it actually does start to kick in, because he's laid all this groundwork, and because he knows that his audience have seen dozens upon dozens of his films, and presumably have loved most of them. Look, I think he really knows how to kind of pull on their strings and get exactly what he needs to get out of their kind of viewing experience.
Yeah, it is a film for me that could be likened pacing wise to like a classical piece of music. It just builds and builds and builds and builds, and then you just get this massive crescendo where everything that could go wrong does go wrong.
Yeah.
Everything's blowing up, catching fire, people are dying, buildings are burning, like children are getting attacked. This is huge crescendo, but for the majority of the film up to that, it is a slow burn, getting gradually more and more ominous. even like the sky in this film looks great. The one award that this won was best effects, and the only one it was nominated for at the Academy Awards was best effect, and it lost to the other nominee. Yes, they only nominated 2 films that year, and Cleopatra won for best effects over this, which is actually a film that I really want to cover on the podcast because, again, it's just a real interesting film that exists. I don't know if it's necessarily an amazing film, but like, what a disaster. That being said, it did win over The Birds at the Academy Awards for best effects, but even like the sky in this film just gradually gets darker. It has kind of like the film itself. It has slowly but surely grown on me. I really, really did enjoy it. And again, I really agreed with your point. I felt that as I was watching it, Hitchcock makes the audience think, oh, is he trying to like catch lightning in a bottle twice? Is he trying to do the overbearing mother thing 2 films in a row? And he just pulls the rug from under you. And the way that character goes, Lydia, who's the mother character, the way that she pans out is very interesting, and is particularly interesting knowing what happens obviously in Psycho, which we're not going to spoil, but also go watch that episode.
Yeah, 100%. So might as well crack on with kind of make some of the key points of the film. So obviously Melanie works in a... Well, no, she doesn't actually work in the shop. She faints. She pretends she does.
Yeah, she is a serial prankster.
Yeah, which it's pretty interesting because obviously she meets Mitch at this shop and pretends to work there, and you get the whole love boards there. There's literal love boards. So it's Hitchcock again, kind of setting things up. He's quite a clever man. But then she basically drives to Bodega Bay. She tries to initially go to Mitch's apartment with these love boards because she's a serial prankster, like Harry said, and he's not there. Yeah. He's in Bodega Bay with his family for the weekend, like he is most weekends. So she drives there. Like, she's willing to drive several hours to just pull off this fairly simple prank, which is fair play to her.
For context, she didn't work in that bird shop.
No.
She then pretended to work in it so that she could chat to Mitch. Mitch recognizes her because he's actually a lawyer and has recognized her from being taken to court for her pranks. So he actually ends up pranking her. So then she has this like compulsion to get one over on him. So she decides to deliver lovebirds to his house. But yeah, as you said, he's not home. So she doesn't know this guy.
And then that scene where she's in Bodega Bay and she's asking around kind of like say the local post office, and she's asking locals. She goes to like this woman's house who turns out to be Mitch's ex, and she's saying like, oh, where's he live, blah blah. And then when she eventually gets on the boat, she brings the lovebirds there, drops it off, and then she gets back on the boat. She's waiting to see if Mitch can see. Eventually, we can see Mitch looks at the lovebirds. Is like, what the hell's going on here? You can see his like little eureka moment, and then he looks across the bay, and she's there. She's like, oh fuck. So she's obviously trying to scare her. I think Mitch is quite enamored with her at this point for sure. Like I think he kind of appreciates the fact that she's come all this way to pull off this asinine prank. But yeah, obviously it turns out that Melanie is kind of the heiress to like a relatively small fortune, I would say, because her father is like a newspaper editor. So he kind of is the editor or the owner of a bunch of like newspapers. So she's obviously, I don't think she's necessarily like rich, like she's super wealthy, but she's definitely wealthy enough that she can afford to kind of go to college part-time, and she kind of does have a part-time job elsewhere, and then she basically, her main passion in life is just to pull off these dumb, stupid pranks. So fair play to her.
Yes. Yeah, the character is real interesting. I feel like every character in this film not every character in this film, because there's actually a very innocent child in this film, but a lot of the characters in this film have like an interesting edge to them.
Yeah. And
having similar to Psycho again, having a lead female protagonist who very much has rough edges and has somewhat questionable morals at points is just really interesting. It's very Hitchcock coded, and very like 60s Hitchcock coded anyway. And I think Tippi Hedren is very good in that role. I think the other film she did with Hitchcock was Marnie. I think this dunks on Marnie, by the way. I think there's no comparison as to which film's better. And I think it is also worth mentioning, obviously, the allegations of the incidences that happened on set, because Tippi Hedren is probably most famous, unfortunately, for about 50 years after coming out and saying that she was subject to sexual harassment by Hitchcock on set. Not one, but two effects on set went wrong. Initially, there's a phone booth attack scene where she gets attacked by birds, where a pane of glass broke and cut her in the face. And then obviously the most famous thing, which again, unfortunately for her, the reason that Tippi Hedren is most famous, I think, is because of the final scene in the film, which I'm not going to spoil, but you know, it's called The Birds. She's in a room with real birds and she gets attacked by actual birds. Like, that actually happens, which was a last minute fake out that they decided to do and not inform her on. It was initially meant to be like mechanical robotic birds that were flying around, and they actually just put her in a room with real birds. So yeah, Tippi Hedren is also a huge wildlife activist after this. She founded a wildlife organization in the 80s. So yeah, Tippi Hedren's performance in this is amazing, and Tippi Hedren is more than just the woman who was subject to being attacked by birds and glass at the very minimum on the set of The Birds. I just think it's worth pointing out because, yeah, I think she plays the rogue protagonist very well.
Yeah, she definitely strikes that balance between humor and obviously you can tell that she wants kind of more out of life as well. Like, even though this is kind of her great kind of hobby, you can tell that she does kind of want a little bit more as well. But obviously, like you said, that those sexual harassment allegations happened on the set of Marnie, which she made after this. So obviously, in case anyone's wondering why she went to work with him after, and it's actually because they didn't happen until Marnie, allegedly, obviously. But yeah, I think we all believe her for sure. So yeah, then she starts to meet Mitch's sister Kathy, and she's pretty enamored with Melanie from the start.
I think great child performance, by the way.
Yeah, pretty good child performance, which is not obviously
like, because often kids are just really irritating in old movies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
yeah, like they're often like the worst part of the movie. Like they just never really. I feel like as far as like scouting child actors went back then, they just went for like who looks like a cute kid, like who's like a kid who looks like a kid that you would see in a movie. They didn't like acting and voice were always secondary because they always had squeaky, irritating voices. Yeah. So I think it's always worth pointing out when there's a child performance that's actually good. Yeah. So 100%. Yeah, I think the child performance is actually good.
I never like singling out child performances when they're bad because like I can't really expect too much else. But yeah,
no, but I think it's worth singling out when they are good because 100%. It's few and far between in this era.
100%, yeah, 100%. But obviously, we should say that Melanie was actually attacked.
Veronica Cartwright.
Is that her name? Okay, fair enough.
Yes, Veronica Cartwright plays Kathy.
Yeah, shout out Veronica Cartwright. But yeah, obviously, when Melanie's trying to kind of escape, Mitch makes it sound a lot more like dark than it actually is. But she's trying to trying to essentially. Because she's
trying to get away with her prank unscathed.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But then as she's doing this, she's on the water, she's in the boat. But as she's doing it, a bird comes down and attacks her. Seems to deliberately peck her in the head. So obviously Mitch is trying to help her out, and that's how she gets introduced to his family and stuff. And then we can see then they go to, obviously, she then learns that Annie, who's the teacher that she met previously, she learns that Annie is Mitch's ex, and she actually moved out to San Francisco because of Mitch, and then she ended up in Bodega Bay, etc., etc. So it's like she's kind of learning more and more about Mitch's backstory, but then it's all kind of a precursor to the Lydia storyline where she finally meets Lydia. And obviously, like I said, Hitchcock is very much kind of fucking with us. He's very much toying with our expectations. Because of Psycho, people will go in because obviously Psycho's a smash hit. People will go in and see this storyline seemingly start to unfold of this overbearing mother, and she's obviously super protective of her son, and what's going to happen is Melanie going to be kind of the victim of this person, but no, it's actually obviously that's not quite what happens, because we can see the birds are starting to act quite strange. First of all, they're starting to kind of act in ways that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and they're also starting to congregate, which you wouldn't also expect.
They are, and it's one of my favorite things about the film is how you'll get a dramatic scene, because again, we talked about, it was last week, if I'm not mistaken, we did how the issue with Godzilla, which is what we covered last week, is the forced in love triangle.
Yeah.
And then you said obviously that's a real Hitchcock thing too. It feels like where there's like a great concept for a film, but there's like a forced romantic element.
Yeah.
I really like how in this film the romantic element, or the sort of the soap opera melodramatic subplot, has a actual purpose, which is to distract the audience
100%.
from the birds. So anytime you see anything in this sort of, there's technically a love triangle, but like it's certainly a shape where you have Mitch, his former lover Annie, who's a school teacher of Kathy, and Tippi Hedren's character. The three of them have kind of a triangle. But then there's also the triangle between Tippi Hedren, Mitch, and Mitch's mother Lydia, because to begin with, you just don't know what Lydia's intentions are and why she's kind of like so against the idea of this woman rocking up. And whilst these conversations are happening in the background, you'll just see a phone line covered in birds.
Yeah.
Like just covered. And it's great. It's such a great way of using the romantic, melodramatic subplot to just totally disarm the audience, so that when this big crescendo does happen, when you go back to a rewatch or whatever, you'll notice more and more instances of subtle foreshadowing, because it's not all about, you know, a bird smashes into a window or a bird smashes into a door, or like a just full on shot of like birds everywhere. There is the odd shot where you will just see a phone line in the background just covered in birds, or they'll be walking and there's just like so many birds on a roof or something. There's so many instances of foreshadowing in this film, and building up to that big crescendo. It's great. And I think that Hitchcock uses the romantic subplot in the best way that Hitchcock can, because he quite oftenly it feels forced.
Yeah.
So it's great to see a Hitchcock film where it's not forced and has a great purpose.
Yeah, very much so. And speaking of, obviously, like you said, crescendo, the very first kind of major bird attack we get is at Kathy's birthday party. So there's obviously
This
a bunch
was
of kids there.
traumatic event for a lot of people growing up, seeing this scene for the first time.
Yeah, I can imagine. So obviously there's this birthday party with a lot of kids there, and obviously having a good time, and out of nowhere a bunch of birds just start attacking the shit out of these young, just
fuck out of them kids,
just pecking them and attacking them and biting them, and oh my god, and it's obviously,
you just get a shot of like a girl like laid down like Peter Griffin on the floor, like covered in like 30 birds all pecking her, and Tippi Hedren has to run over and save her. And it's such a mad visual
crazy
image.
yeah,
seeing
crazy.
that as a child for the first time, no wonder so many children are like scarred from this, like so many were scarred from this film.
Blood everywhere, scars.
Hitchcock didn't give a fuck.
No. But obviously, yeah, that's obviously this narratively serves then to bring Mitch and Melanie closer. She kind of helps out and cleans up wounds and cleans the house up from all the damage caused, etc., etc. And then Lydia goes to visit her local farmer who she buys chicken feed off of, and this is probably the craziest image from the whole film.
Iconic imagery in this film.
Yeah.
Like when you think about the birth of the horror genre, you do think about Psycho. Obviously, you know, Bucket of Blood, Roger Corman, films existed prior to this. Peeping Tom as well, unbelievable film from Michael Pell. But as far as imagery in horror that is actually like haunting goes, one of the first truly terrifying images in Hollywood cinema has to be this guy with his eyes just gouged out.
Crazy.
It is an image that will last forever in Hollywood history.
And it's the fact that he shoots her, so it's a shot and then it's a closer shot and then it's even closer. It's like Hitchcock is giving you that kind of, he's making you look, he's making you come closer and closer. He's not letting you look away. It's
and the whole scene as well is kind of shot and framed and paced like the movie.
Yeah.
She gets to the barn, doesn't really think anything of it. She sees a broken window. Oh, that's odd. She goes into another room. There's a bird that's come through that window covered in blood. Oh, okay, that's really weird.
Yeah.
Another room, feathers everywhere, birds are everywhere. Look in the corner. Oh my god, he's had his eyes gouged out. And then yeah, Hitchcock makes you look at that. It is
Crazy.
incredible.
Yeah. So Lily is kind of worried about Kathy at school. She's like, I don't want the same thing to obviously happen to my daughter and all your kids. So Melanie goes to the school, and again, just like you said on the phone lines, hundreds of words just lined up.
The jungle gym shots are so amazing. And she's there lighting a cigarette, and just in the background, shit is going on.
And you could see how trepidatious Melanie is. Like, she doesn't want to go in, but she knows she has to, obviously, to save these kids. So they're trying to escape with the kids, and all carnage, all hell's break loose, carnage everywhere. Yeah. Kids again start getting attacked.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy! Absolutely.
You'd
crazy.
Want to have your tetanus booster coming into this film, because I actually would love to know the statistics on how many people booked themselves in for a tetanus shot in 1963 after seeing this movie.
Crazy. So yeah, they
kind
kind
of
of
interesting thing to know.
They go to the diner to hang out, or to basically escape and to get a bit of refuge from the birds.
Yeah.
And that's when we get kind of a little bit more like of the. Obviously, there's some theories floating around as to what actually is happening. There's this woman who's an ornithologist who's saying, "No, it's not possible for these birds to different species of birds flying together. It's not possible. It's never happened in human history." I don't know what you're talking about. You're obviously lying or you're mistaken. But but obviously Melanie then feels like she's gone crazy. She's like, "No, I know for a fact this is what's happening," and then obviously all these different theories going about. One guy thinks it's the end of the world. He keeps talking about how it's the end of the world, and then we see the gas station sequence. It's crazy.
Yeah,
this guy obviously filling up at a gas station starts to light a cigarette, and oh shit.
Yeah, it's some Rube Goldberg type shit. But funnily enough, we get this scene this week and next week on the podcast where petrol goes under a car.
Yeah.
That petrol ends up catching fire. In this instance, it's because he drops the match. Instantly, he just bursts into flames. Car bursts into flames. But then it's set because he's in a car park. It just sets off a row of explosions, and then we get this almost hilarious shot.
Oh, it's terrible shot.
It's like the birds are like laughing at the humans. You're in the sky and you can just see this town is like engulfed in flames, and people are running around screaming for their lives, and it's just like these two seagulls just flying next to each other, and it's just like, are they talking? Like, are they just like being like, look at them losers down there? It's just a really funny idea. But the effects in this film, for a good portion of the film, work. For a good portion, I think the kids getting attacked on the way home from school is definitely the worst rear projection, because it's so blatantly obvious. Because what they're doing is they're obviously like green screening, effectively different at the time, but they're effectively green screening birds in front of a rear projection, but the rear projection is blurry, so you can see that like it's rear projection. That being said, a lot of the effects do work, but this is also another instance of just like blurry rear projection with these like HD birds flying. But that being said, I just thought that shot was hilarious, because like
really bad.
To me, it's just like a bunch of seagulls just like, look at them losers, right? Let's go down and kill some more kids. Like, it's just, it's so funny. But yeah, Bodega Bay is in a right mess.
Yeah, and all the locals then start to think that Melanie is responsible. Like, they're like, this only ever started happening when you turned up, so are you a witch? What are you? So obviously Melanie's like, again, she's going out of her mind. She goes to pick up Kathy from Annie's house. Annie's house. And poor Annie. Yet another victim of these asshole words. Oh man, she's there.
Heck to death.
Absolutely destroyed. Absolutely, pecked to death, murdered to bits. So obviously they go home and Mitch is, everyone's just trying to regroup, recuperate. Kind of, Mitch is boarding up the house. Everyone's kind of losing their minds.
Yeah, obviously at that time in these kind of films, the first thing you think of is, oh god, they need to switch on the radio because that's where you get your updates, and it's great because they turn on the radio and they get one throwaway line on the radio and then they move on to something else and they are pissed because it makes them feel even more hysterical. It's like, oh, reporters saying that birds are being quite aggressive in Bodega Bay. Anyways, with the news, and it's like they just lose their minds. So yeah, radio's gone. Everyone's gone into hysterics. We start to get more character development, or at least we start to kind of unearth what Lydia's character is really about. She is not like the mother from Psycho at all. And yeah, these birds are just like very aggressively trying to break into this house.
Yeah, very aggressively is right. So yeah, Mitch gets absolutely hacked to pieces. Poor Mitch gets hacked to pieces at one point.
Yeah.
And then Melanie goes upstairs to one of the rooms to try and just make sure that everything's okay up there. But guess what? The whole ceiling, the whole roof is caved in. And there are literally hundreds and hundreds of birds just hanging out peacefully in this little room, this bedroom or this attic.
Yeah.
Just,
and then the door closes behind her and...
Oh
God.
Yeah, she is their prey now. She is absolutely, again, hacked to pieces, absolutely destroyed. Mitch and Lydia just about managed to get her out of the room, but she's obviously in a very, very bad way.
Yeah, that is the scene where in real life, Hedrum was told, you're going to go into a room of mechanical birds, and she went into a room with real birds and got attacked by real birds.
That's crazy. That is actually crazy. Yeah. So Mitch goes outside. He's obviously like, we can't stay here anymore. We're just going to get killed if we do. So again, a great scene of him like very, very slowly walking to the garage and kind of starting this car. And again, you can hear on the radio that actually this does seem to be happening in other kind of towns.
Yeah, it's slowly but surely working its way to the neighbouring towns now.
Yeah. And obviously they're talking about potentially a National Guard response and stuff like this. So Mitch is like, just get the fuck out of here. So he slowly kind of starts pushing the car outside, driving it outside, and they get in and they start to drive away. And like that is the end of the film. And again, I love how open-ended it's left.
It's left very open-ended as well because Kathy, the child who's sobbing, brings the lovebirds with her because they haven't hurt anyone. Which is interesting as well, that it's like it's just like crows and pigeons and seagulls, like everyone's least favorite birds that are attacking everyone. Yeah. And we do get a close up of the lovebirds during the house attack, and they seem totally calm. Yeah. So it also kind of leaves an open door for like theories and stuff as to like why were the lovebirds okay? Why are like the extravagant birds fine, but it's the dirty birds. Yeah. The ones that you see every day. Why are they the ones that are attacking everyone?
Less exotic, yeah, exactly.
Again, just a great choice. But yeah, very interesting that they take the two lovebirds with them as well in the car on the way.
Yeah,
and the birds just watch them slowly just roll down the hill in their car.
Yeah, and obviously, left massively open ended. There's never an explanation why they decided to attack, why they've decided to congregate together. Why kind of birds are all starting to, like I said, kind of meet up and like fly in different flocks and etc. Mm-hmm. Like it's really left all up to your kind of own imagination, your own theories, etc., which is obviously isn't always the case with Hitchcock. Usually he does kind of like to explain things pretty much down to the letter, but I did appreciate how, because you can't really explain it. You could say it's supernatural, but to me that's less interesting. I think it's less interesting.
And it's also more interesting when a director chooses not to explain things.
Yeah, because
like with with Weapons that came out this year with Zach Cregger. I love that Zach Cregger is just like not answering anyone's questions as to like what anything in that film means. He's just leave it open into interpretation, which is great. I always back that decision.
Yeah, 100%, because it just invites more discussion, more theories, more kind of etc. Yeah, so that's obviously
more people can make podcasts about it because there's no right answer.
Exactly. Yeah, more fuel to the fire for us. So that's obviously The Birds. This is my second time watching it. For some reason on Letterboxd came up as a 3. I thought I gave it 3.5. I'm gonna go 3.5 on this rewatch. I gave it 3 on the first viewing I had. Definitely went up on my estimation on this viewing. Like you said, I think the pacing is not slow, but it's definitely deliberate. But I think I definitely appreciate that more in the second viewing.
Methodical. 2009 Randy Orton. It's methodical.
It is methodical, deliberate. It's very much intentional that it's slowly pacing it so that when shit does start to go down, it does really have an impact. And yeah, some of the imagery is crazy. Like the guy with his eyes pecked out, the guy going up in flames at the garage or the filling station, and then some of those scenes, just as the birds just looks just there peacefully, all just gathered, because never have birds congregating in one area before being so threatening and so kind of so ominous. So yeah, I really appreciate this a lot more in the second time. I still would have it like mid-tier Hitchcock for me. Like I wouldn't get near my top 10 to be honest, but I definitely appreciate it more in the second viewing. What about you, Harry?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd have it top 10. If it is top 10, it's like 9th or 10th. But I really, really enjoyed this. Like the first time I watched this when I was a teenager, and this goes to show like you can always change your mind on a movie. You can always enjoy it more or hate it more. The second, third, fourth time watching it. I think the first time I ever watched The Birds, I gave it like 2 or 2.5. I eventually, on my third watch, bumped it up to a 3. And I've now bumped it all the way up to a 4. I got a lot out of this rewatch of The Birds. It is a great example of early horror from Hollywood. A fantastic slow burn, great crescendo. Yeah, the rear projection is kind of dated, but to be honest, it's mostly not. Like most of the effects,
most is good. Yeah,
most of the effects do work. All the practical effects work for me. Like when the birds are like smashing into windows and like you can see they're bleeding from their necks and stuff. Like they go to town on like making sure that those practical effects work, and they do. As you said, your man with his eyes gouged out, the birthday party attack, the various scenes of phone lines or jungle gyms being covered in birds. It all works for me. I think Tippi Hedren is a fantastic rogue protagonist, because I would imagine more so back then people would have thought her character was rogue, a woman going around spending her time pranking people left, right, and center. Now, Mitch does also allude to the fact that some of her pranks have like injured people, so it'd be interesting to know what those were. But I'd say back then she was definitely considered like a particularly rogue character. She's still fairly rogue, but I think Hedren's great in this film. And yeah, this for me is the last great Hitchcock film before Frenzy, which I know a lot of people are iffy on, but I fucking love Frenzy. And I think I would have Frenzy still above this. So yeah, I think Frenzy is still better than this for me. But it is one of the great late Hitchcock films in his career. That being said, I haven't seen Family Plot yet. I need to watch Family Plot, so I can't actually comment on Family Plot. That might be great too. But yeah, it is a film I would definitely recommend to anyone who watches the Golden Hour Film Podcast, because I feel like anyone who watches the Golden Hour Film Podcast has a level of appreciation for old cinema, classic Hollywood, so they're more inclined to watch a slow burner from classic Hollywood. If you are convinced that you are not going to like a slow burner, this probably won't be for you. But I feel like most people who watch the podcast, if not everyone who watches the podcast, are big fans of old cinema. So yeah, anyone who's watching this video in particular, I would recommend it too, definitely. Yeah,
that just before we get into kind of what I watched recently, that like you said, obviously late Hitchcock. Like I know Quentin Tarantino's not the biggest Hitchcock fan, and I know when he says that like most directors' late period work isn't as strong as their previous work, which I agree with for sure. I think it is a fact. But to me, like when he, let me just go on a little rant here for I'll keep it as short as possible, right? So obviously obviously Tarantino is probably he says he's going to retire after his next film, his 10th film. Paul Thomas Anderson, he's not talking about retiring, but his 10th film is going to come out. And obviously those two guys are like, kind of, they came up and they've been making movies at pretty much the same time. They've both made 9-10 films at this point. But to me, like, I just want to talk about Tarantino. I think he's kind of a coward, to be honest. Like, who cares if you make 6 more films and 4 of them are shit? Who cares? It doesn't make your previous work terrible. You know what I mean? It doesn't make Pulp Fiction or Inglourious Bastards or Kill Bill, like, it doesn't make them terrible. Like, in retrospect, they're still amazing films. Just go and make what you want to make. If you don't want to make any more films, that's absolutely fine too. But don't create this little arbitrary number for yourself and say, oh, I can't go past that because like, I don't want to, like, make my filmography worse by just stop being a coward and make films if you want to make them. Anyway, that's my rant over. Sorry about that.
Yeah, to kick on Tarantino whilst Shane is on top and punching him in the head. His comment about if Hitchcock's films in the 50s were made in the 70s, they'd be better, is just objectively wrong. That comment is just wrong. Like, shut up. Rear Window is perfect. North by Northwest is perfect. Vertigo is perfect. Oh, if Hitchcock didn't have his limitations. Listen, Hitchcock didn't have his limitations when he made Frenzy, and Frenzy is amazing. But that's what makes Frenzy amazing, is because it is Hitchcock without the limitations. It's like, it's such an interesting thing. I think if you were to take his entire body of work and shift it forward 20 years, it loses it. Like, as a result, everything loses its not its merit, but it's not as special. It's just not as special. Yeah. What makes Rear Window special is because it was made when it was made. What makes Vertigo special is because it was made. That comment that he made, that I've referenced before, is also just objectively wrong. Yeah. Hitchcock or Tarantino is a fantastic director. Oh, yeah. I would actually maintain that Tarantino never made a bad film. I would go as far as to say that Tarantino has only ever made very good films.
I agree.
But some of his opinions are just wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's so interesting to listen to about the history of film and about kind of how films are made.
70s cinema in particular. Talking about 70s cinema is a really interesting listen.
He's such a student of cinema, so I definitely love listening to him. But, like, yeah, sometimes he can be wrong. It's not controversial to that. Anyway, yeah, that's rant over. Look, I hope he makes his 10th film, and I hope he makes more after that. Even though obviously, I've kind of lost hope at this point that maybe I think he's pretty much set in his ways, and he's set in the fact that
he might even make a 10th film at this point, because I think he's already moved on from the idea of the film critic.
Yeah, so
or the movie critic, whatever it was going to be called. I think he's already moved on from that.
Yeah, no, he obviously has written the sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but obviously David Fincher's going to be directing that, so yeah, we'll see. That could be a fun thing to watch, because those are two guys that you wouldn't necessarily have thought would collaborate, obviously. So
yeah.
Anyway, we're going to get into kind of little sidebar aside. We're going to get into what we watched recently. I'll go first. I rewatched Interstellar because it's been re-released in cinemas over here. Absolutely loved the film. I've always loved it. Probably seen it 4 or 5 times, but I definitely got more out of it on this occasion than I had previously. Probably because I saw it in cinemas and I could really lock in and focus, but also I could really kind of understand some more of Christopher Nolan's kind of thematic intentions, what he's really trying to do. And Matt Damon is just he's such a coward. He's one of the most cowardly characters I've ever seen. That such a slimeball. I wanted to punch him in the face repeatedly. But yeah,
and you get Baby Chalamet too.
Yeah, Baby Chalamet and Michael Caine. This is one of the great late Michael Caine performances, in my opinion. That scene when he's I won't say, could be a spoiler, but his final scene in the film, yeah, that hit my heartstrings, and not necessarily in a positive way from his character's point of view, for sure. The Long Walk is the latest Stephen King adaptation. So obviously we've had like a plethora of Stephen King adaptations in the last few years.
In like 50 years' time, it's going to get to a point where we're just adapting things that Stephen King like wrote in his notes app.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That man can't make a thing that doesn't get adapted.
So apparently this was the book written when he actually Richard Bachman is the guy who wrote this book, which obviously is a pseudonym for Stephen King. But apparently, this was the first ever novel he wrote when he was about 17, which is crazy. So this is about kind of a dystopian, kind of futuristic America where it's become pretty much ruled by the military, and they don't want to kind of talk about the past, and the military kind of rule over all, etc., etc. So there's it's about kind of 50 boys, 50 young men, who one from each state who can sign up for this thing called the Long Walk, and basically you're walking. You can't drop below 3 miles an hour. If you do, you get one warning. If you do again, you get a second warning. If you do again, you get a third warning, and then you're gone. They shoot you. So I'm not gonna get into obviously all the specifics, but Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson are kind of the two leads. I think Cooper Hoffman's kind of credited as the lead, but I would say David Johnson definitely has just as much story importance, and the two of these guys are absolutely phenomenal. David Johnson in particular is like, that guy has just an absolute hell of a future. Everything I've seen him in, he's so great. And this is like, this is absolutely, this is like the kind of performance where it's like, this guy is gonna do something serious, something very, very soon. It's definitely my favourite Stephen King adaptation that I've seen this year. I did enjoy the others. I enjoyed The Monkey, I enjoyed The Life of Chuck. Like I do always pretty much enjoy Stephen King adaptations, but because there's so many of them, I can't lie, like you kind of all blend into one for me at some point. Whereas this, I think this does stand out from the crowd a little more. So it does have kind of Hunger Games kind of vibes to it, and it's not really by accident, because Francis Lawrence, who directed I think the last 3 Hunger Games movies, maybe 4 actually, if you include the latest one, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, he directs this as well. And yeah, I think that's a pretty smart choice, because you can tell that he kind of knows how to get the best out of this material. So would definitely recommend that. And then Kiss Me Deadly is the latest noir that I watched, and this is so great. I had such a great time with this. One of the most overly influential films I've ever seen. So like, there's genuinely about 6 or 7 all-time cinema classics that you can tell were majorly influenced by events of this film, whether it be the ending, one of the all-time great endings in cinema history, which I'm not going to spoil, but it clearly just pays homage to, or just pretty much rips off from this film. There's a great scene involving a box, which, again, you think I was just talking about Pulp Fiction, I just talked about Seven. So I think those movies are definitely quite heavily inspired by a box in this film and its contents, which it's pretty much a MacGuffin of the film, where like the box in this film is mysterious and characters are chasing it, and what's in them, what does it signify, etc., etc. So I had a great time with this film. One of the great, it's a lot of people would say this is like the last noir. It came out in 1955. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think Touch of Evil and a couple of others came out a little bit after, which you could say that they are, but it's definitely like one of the later kind of true noirs that, it's so great. It's really great, and I probably will have more in-depth things to say about it in a video that will be coming out in the near future. So check that out. But yeah, that's what I've watched. Haven't seen too much, but obviously what I've watched I have really enjoyed. What about you?
Well, as of recording, this week just gone, I just started my masters, so I had time for one singular movie. So I decided to introduce my girlfriend to one of my favorite movies of all time, starring Robin Williams, starring Ethan Hawke, starring Robert Sean Leonard, directed by Peter Weir, The Dead Poets Society. It is, for me, essential viewing this time of year. I normally watch it like in November, but essential autumn viewing. It was a particularly autumnal day when we watched it. But yeah, we were scrolling through, I think, Netflix, and she said she had never seen Dead Poets Society before, and that was that. It is unbelievable. It is one of my most cherished movies ever. I had a teacher in English in secondary school who basically lived by the same principles that Robin Williams' character does, and like literally as far as like he would take us out of lessons and we would do Macbeth, but we'd be sat on the football pitch instead just to make the lesson more interesting, or we'd be reading Great Gatsby, but we'd also be, I don't know, it'd be like someone would have a ball and it's like you're reading Great Gatsby and then you just throw it and you throw the ball to someone else and they have to, it just makes everyone engage in the book and also yeah. He just had all these like unique ways of teaching. I only had him for like a year, but I could tell that he was incredibly impacted by this movie. Yeah, I just adore it. If anyone hasn't seen The Dead Poet Society, I couldn't recommend it enough. It is a tearjerker, and it's kind of funny because I told my girlfriend that it has a happy ending because to me, the ending of the film is a happy ending. It wasn't her idea of a happy ending. Yeah.
No.
He fucking stood up for himself though. But yeah, I couldn't recommend that movie enough. Dead Poet Society. I'm sure more or less everyone who is watching up until this point in the podcast or is listening along has seen it. But on the off chance that you haven't, I couldn't recommend it enough.
At the risk of oversharing, I think Robin Williams' death, like, I think, as far as I can remember, it's the only time a celebrity's death has actually made me cry. I don't even know why. I remember when I read that, like, I genuinely just burst into tears. I don't know, it's like his movies and his stand-up comedy is always, I just really loved it. They've always kind of struck me and stuck with me. So it was kind of like an involuntary response, but obviously, yeah, may he rest in peace, and absolute legend that he was.
Yeah, just one of a kind. Like, Robin Williams had like a specific way of being able to make the audience feel that I don't think anyone has ever been able to do before or since. So that was the episode of the Golden Hour Film Podcast where we covered The Birds. Next week is, of course, as you already know, Night of the Living Dead, directed by George A. Romero. But also next week we have what I would say is the biggest announcement in the history of the podcast. So stay tuned for that next week. Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, I've been Harry Bailey.
I've been Shane Roddy.
And we will see you all next week for the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Goodbye.